2 hours later.
Sup? Right. Oh, there it is.
Just before we get into today's video, I wanted to quickly show you all this limited edition Lazy Masquerade plush from U2's.
Is that him? I feel like that's him. Unless he got an actor. I've never seen his face before. That's crazy.
Ever wanted to snuggle up in bed, listening to my videos, with me beside you? Well, now you can. I designed this plush with the team over at U2's, and I'm just blown away by the level of detail. It has it all. The honey mask, the wild hair, the dusty pinstripe suit. Even the colours are based off of my YouTube profile picture. Lots of nice touches. These cheeky devils aren't on sale just yet. They actually launch on October 18th at 12 PM PST, 3 PM EST. But you can win one of them. U2's is actually hosting a competition right now. All you have to do to enter is click the link down in the description or comment section. That'll take you to the contest page. Once there, follow U2's on Twitter and visit their other social media pages for 4 chances to win a Lazy Masquerade plush of your own. So, click on that giveaway link down below and be sure to enter. And who knows, you just may be one of the lucky few who get their hands on this little Lonnie who's a friend to all the family.
Yo, his dog is probably like, why am I in this video?
On December 17th, 1968, 20-year-old Barbara Mackle was staying with her mother at the Roadway Inn in Decatur.
Decatur? Decatur, Georgia? Look at all this. Look at all this. Look at all this. Look at all that. Oh my God.
Georgia. The young woman was sick with Hong Kong flu, and her mum had come to pick her up from university and drive her back.
She was sick with what? Hong Kong flu? You racist? Go back. That's what you said?
On December 17th, 1968, 20-year-old Barbara Mackle was staying with her mother at the Roadway Inn in Decatur, Georgia. The young woman was sick with Hong Kong flu, and her...
Alright. Wow, that was racist. I'm joking. I'm not calling him racist. I'm calling the people who ever named that shit racist. Unless it came from actual... Alright.
had come to pick her up from university and drive her back to their home in Florida for the Christmas break. That night, as Barbara and her mother were relaxing in their motel room, they received an unexpected knock at the door. Standing outside were 2 male police officers. They flashed their badges at the women and then told Barbara that her fiancé, Stuart, had been involved in a terrible traffic accident.
God damn.
With a million questions racing through her mind, not least how the officers knew where to find her, Barbara quickly ushered them both into their motel room and closed the door. One can only imagine how she felt in that moment, terrified about the well-being of her fiancé. And one can only imagine how she felt when one of the officers rushed towards her mother with a chloroform drag and smothered her unconscious with it.
Jesus!
In that same instant, the other officer drew a pistol and told Barbara not to move. Her mother was bound and gagged in the room, and Barbara herself was led out by the 2 strangers and forced into a vehicle. Once inside their car, Barbara's 2 captors removed their fake police uniforms. The man holding the firearm calmly told Barbara not to scream or try to escape, and the other man wasn't a man at all, but rather a woman who had disguised herself as one.
Jesus.
This Bonnie and Clyde duo drove Barbara out to a remote wooded area of South Berkeley Lake Road. They forced her out of the vehicle and towards a pre-dug trench. Inside that hole in the ground was a fiberglass box. That box was to be Barbara's coffin. Still at gunpoint, Barbara's 2 captors made her get inside the box in the ground. Then, one of them took this chilling photo of her before burying her alive.
Hey, I really hope I don't get no strike for this. Or demonetized. Oh, God. I remember seeing this movie called Kill Bill. And there was a scene where she was buried alive. And she was in a coffin. I think it was a wooden coffin. She did like a 1-inch punch. But she kept doing it. And like she messed up her knuckles. But I don't know, like, obviously she didn't, I don't think she did that, because she died, but does that work? I would feel like that works. And then I also seen a video that was like, if you do that and you're successful, make sure you put like your clothes or whatever over your face so the dirt won't like smother you. But yeah.
The perp's plan was simple. Barbara's father was an extremely successful land developer. After burying Barbara and leaving her still breathing in her makeshift tomb, they sent this photo to her home address in Florida, along with a ransom note. They demanded $500,000 in cash from her father, approximately $3.4 million in today's money. Barbara would remain buried until that ransom was paid. Her father would have to cough up quick though, they added, since his daughter's air supply wouldn't last forever. Of course, Barbara's father, Robert, agreed to their demands. He met with the two perps in secret to deliver them the cash, but the drop-off was disrupted by two passing policemen. Both the male and female fled from the scene. It was at that point that Robert got the FBI involved. They were able to locate the perp's abandoned vehicle close to the drop-off. The vehicle was registered to a man named George Deacon. Sadly, time wasn't on Robert's side, so before the FBI could follow up on that lead, he organized a second rendezvous with the perps. This time, the cash drop-off was successful, and he gave Barbara's captors exactly what they asked for. After giving them the cool $500,000, he didn't hear back from them. They had gotten their money, but clearly had no intentions of releasing their victim. Barbara was just another witness at that point, and the less of those around, the better. Robert and the authorities were now in a race against time. They had to somehow find Barbara before her supply of oxygen ran out. But how, when she could literally be buried anywhere? Well, the FBI were able to trace a George Deacon to the University of Miami, and this George Deacon just so happened to build ventilated boxes for a living.
Oh, wow.
They went to pay him a visit, but Deacon was nowhere to be found, so they searched the small trailer in which he lived. Inside, they found numerous letters addressed to a man named Gary Christ, a convict who had escaped California prison 2 years prior. After comparing fingerprints found in the trailer to those found inside the abandoned car, detectives quickly realized that Deacon and Christ were one and the same. Gary Christ had simply changed his identity after escaping jail. On December 20th, detectives were able to track Gary Christ down. They found him hiding out in a swamp in Florida. That same night, he gave investigators vague directions to where Barbara was buried. More than 100 agents scoured a huge area in rural Georgia in an attempt to find the missing woman, many of them digging up the earth with their bare hands, few of them holding out hope that she was still alive. Miraculously, they found her. And even more miraculous, she was still breathing.
Oh, Jesus, yay.
After more than 3 days of being buried under the earth in a small box, she was, of course, severely dehydrated, but was otherwise unharmed. As for Gary Christ's female accomplice, she was apprehended in Norman, Oklahoma, 2.5 months later. Her name was Ruth Eisman Shear.
Ruth?
She had applied for a job at a hospital, and, as a part of a background check, had her fingerprints taken. Those prints were picked up by the FBI, who matched them to another set found inside.
That was stupid. You dumbass.
the abandoned car. Apparently, she and Gary Christ had become separated after the second money drop, and, figuring that she had been left to fend for herself, fled to Oklahoma. She was sentenced to 7 years in prison, served 4 of those, and was then deported back to her native Honduras. As for Gary Christ, he was sentenced to life behind bars,
Oh, thank you.
but only served 10 before being paroled.
What?
After that, he was officially pardoned so that he could go to med school, and eventually, he became a doctor in Indiana. He later had his license revoked after lying about a disciplinary action that he had received during his residency. More recently, in 2006, he was arrested yet again, this time on a sailboat, trying to smuggle 14 kilos of cocaine into Alabama. I guess some folks never learn.
Just lock him up. No chance parole. Lock him the hell up. What the hell?
Take a look at this image.
What the hell am I looking at? What is that? Oh, God. I'm sorry. I'm so dramatic.
Study it for a few seconds. Can you name even one object in it? Difficult, right? How does looking at it make you feel?
Uneasy.
Frustrated? Uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Creeped out?
Yeah.
Nauseated?
Yeah.
Confused?
Yeah.
Does it give you a weird, localized headache?
Yeah.
I only ask because most people have a negative reaction to it. But that's by design. You see, this picture was created to simulate the nightmarish experience of having a stroke,
Oh, my God.
particularly ones that affect the optical lobe of the cerebral cortex, the part of the brain responsible for visual perception. Everything looks familiar, but at the same time, unrecognizable, like you're in a weird, warped version of reality. Those who've experienced this type of stroke and survived have said that this image accurately depicts how things appear. Imagine the anxiety and confusion that would grip you if your world were to turn to this, especially considering you'd probably lose the ability to call for help or tell anyone what you're experiencing. If you think that somebody is suffering from a stroke, but they physically can't tell you, remember to think fast. Face. Is one side drooping? Arms. Can they lift both of them up simultaneously and hold them out? Speech. Can they talk, or are their words mumbled and sloppy? Time. Call an ambulance immediately. As that old PSA on UK TV used to say, the faster you act, the more of a person you'll save.
Right.
Here's a bizarre story that's stranger than fiction. On Christmas Eve of 1945, a fire broke out at the Sodder family household in Fayetteville, West Virginia. Inside the house were George and Jenny Sodder and 9 of their 10 children.
Oh, my God.
The house itself was burned to a crisp, but both parents and 4 of their children were able to escape.
Oh, thank you, Jesus.
The other 5 weren't so lucky.
Oh, God damn.
They were Maurice, 14, Martha Lee, 12,
Jesus.
Lewis, 10,
Jesus.
Jenny Irene, 8,
Damn.
and Betty Dolly, 6.
Oh.
From what I just told you, you may be thinking that the 5 youngsters were consumed by the flames. But that's the thing. After the fire had burned out and the ruins were searched, none of their bodies could be found. George and Jenny believed that their 5 children must have escaped the house, but then had somehow simply vanished into thin air. But if so, where were they? Most people following the story assumed that the Sodder children's remains must have been totally destroyed by the fire and turned to ash, hence why they couldn't be found. That's despite the fact that many household appliances were found burned, but still fully recognizable. Their parents held out hope, however, and continued to believe that all 5 of them had somehow gotten out of the house and were then either taken captive or murdered. A far-fetched belief, you might say, but there were a few mysterious occurrences that happened both before and after the fire that gave their suspicions some credence. On the night the fire broke out, the mother, Jenny Sodder, answered a mysterious phone call at 12:30 a.m. On the other end of the line was a woman whose voice she didn't recognize. According to Jenny, the woman had a weird laugh and she could hear clinking glasses in the background. The woman asked to speak with someone who didn't live at the house. Jenny told her she must have the wrong number, to which the woman again laughed, quote, weirdly, before hanging up the phone. As Jenny made her way back to bed, she heard something loudly smash against the roof of their home, followed by a rolling sound. She froze for a moment, but hearing nothing else, brushed it off and went back to sleep. 30 minutes later, she and the rest of the family awoke to the smell of smoke filling their home. By that point, their staircase was already consumed by fire.
Jesus.
George broke a window in the attic and climbed down the wall of the house to collect his ladder. Strangely, his ladder had been moved from where he had left it and was found at the bottom of an embankment 75 feet away.
So it was a setup this whole time. Got you.
From view. He put up the ladder and helped his family escape, though terrifyingly couldn't find the 5 missing children anywhere in the house. All the others could do was watch as their home burned, since the fire department was too busy to help put out the flames until morning. When firefighters did arrive to examine the ruins, they said that the cause of the fire was faulty wiring. George wasn't buying that. He had just had the house rewired before the blaze, and the electrics were in perfect working order. As such, he instead believed that someone must have started the fire and was waiting to sweep up the children as they ran out. Bones belonging to a single individual were also found inside the charred remains of the home. But weirdly, after testing them, it was confirmed that they belonged to a person older than any of the missing Sodder children. In fact, they had been dug up from a nearby cemetery and had never been exposed to the fire. It's unclear how those bones came to be found in the house, though many assume they were planted. Sure that this wasn't a mere accident, and that the flames hadn't burned hot enough to utterly destroy their children, the Sodder parents put up these signs along State Route 16 in the 1950s, appealing for information about their missing offspring. In the years that followed, multiple alleged sightings of the lost children were reported, though unfortunately, they were never found, alive or dead. But who would hold such a grudge against the Sodder family to burn down their house and do who knows what to their children? Well, George himself was an Italian immigrant. He hated fascism and was an outspoken critic of Benito Mussolini. This had led to some heated arguments with other Italian immigrants, including members of the Sicilian Mafia. Suspiciously, a life insurance salesman told George that his house would, quote, go up in smoke, and his children would be utterly destroyed for remarks he had made about Mussolini. Around that same time, George's elder sons noticed a strange vehicle parked along the main highway in their town, its occupants watching the younger Sodder children as they made their way to school. On the night of the fire, a passing bus driver also reported seeing people throwing, quote, balls of fire at the Sodder house. A green rubber object that resembled a napalm pineapple bomb was later found in the family's yard. So, could this whole incident have been revenge for George's outspokenness? If so, had the perpetrator also taken his anger out on the kids too? Here's the crazy part of the story though. In 1967, 22 years after the house fire, a now widowed Jenny Sodder went to check her mailbox. She found a letter addressed specifically to her. Inside that letter was a photograph. A photograph of a man who strongly resembled her missing 10-year-old son, Louis, now an adult in his early 30s. The back of the photo read, Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie. Lil boys. A90132 or 35. In response, the family hired a private investigator to go to Central City, Kentucky, the place where the picture had been mailed from. The PI went out there, but then mysteriously disappeared himself. They never heard back from him again. The Sodder family added this new photo to their billboards, which stayed up until Jenny's death in 1989. Now Occam's razor tells us that the Sodder children must have simply burned up in the fire, and that their remains were utterly destroyed, or simply not found amongst the rubble. But there are so many unusual elements to this case that suggest something more nefarious may have happened, and that it wasn't a mere electrical malfunction that caused the blaze. Could this photo really be of Louis Sodder as a fully grown man?
Hell yeah.
The features are extremely similar. They both have dark, curly hair, dark brown eyes, the same straight, strong nose, and the same upward tilt of the left eyebrow. But what did the cryptic message on the back of the picture mean? Who had mailed them the photo in the first place? And if Louis was really alive, why hadn't he tried to make contact with his family? Was he trying to protect them? If so, from who? Frustratingly, we don't know the answer to any of those questions, or tens of others for that matter, and given how long ago this all happened, we likely never will. The last of the 10 Sodder children, Sylvia Sodder, who was only 2 at the time of the fire and who made it out of the house, passed away in 2021. Until her dying day, she believed that her siblings hadn't perished in the flames. Many people who follow this case agree.
That's it?
Hey guys.
It was definitely a setup. I feel like with the fire in the house, it was definitely a setup. I don't want to hear nothing else. That electrical wires, my ass. It was definitely a setup. I don't care what you say. This shit right here is crazy. This shit right here is crazy. I don't understand. I mean, I do, but then it's just like, I thought I was looking at something, but apparently I'm not looking at nothing. Oh shit! I for the first story, y'all essentially committed a murder, right, or attempted murder. I just don't understand why y'all went to a hospital. Out of all jobs I could have had, you didn't think they were going to do background checks? Fingerprints? It's a hospital. It's a hospital. You dealing with people's lives. But for the dude to get life and then with a chance of parole for after 10 years, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Some people are just going to be the same no matter what. Oh, God, that's pissed me off. But keep it cool, keep it classy, and I love you. Stay happy. My family.